Ladies and gentlemen, gamers of all ages, welcome to this Holy Grail Games live stream, pre-launch, pre-campaign launch, live stream. Thank you for joining us. My name's Jamie. I'm joined by Olivier, who is the author of Museum, the game that's coming back onto Kickstarter in just over half an hour, I believe, at this rate. So it might even go live whilst we're finishing off running you through all the little changes and all the new stuff that's coming to the campaign.
Yes, a lot of things.
Quite a few things. Yeah. Obviously, Museum remains Museum. We are we're around just over 6 months, I think, into the game's life, as it were, its release.
We released to all distributors, and we have received some news, some information, some feelings about, what we could change in the future. So that's why we are doing our second edition.
Exactly.
And we have worked a lot. We have done our homework and do it again.
It's been a lot of work. Some people wanted an FAQ to straighten up a couple of rules and discrepancies between expansions and that kind of thing. Yeah. We, like you said, we had some feedback which prompted us to rethink a couple of things. So there are a couple of little rules changes. So we're moving into this second edition.
Yeah, we didn't change quite a lot in the game, but just change some taste.
Oh no, Museum is still Museum. That has not changed. Yeah. But there's obviously we test the game. We must test it hundreds of times, especially yourself and Eric. Yeah. We test our games a lot. We have to. You have to test your game a lot. But we spend 2 years playing hundreds of games, and within a month of a game's release, it's been played thousands of times. So obviously, some things slip through the nets, some things that we didn't account for, or just...
Yes, and the game experience is not the same that we have.
Exactly.
We have developed the game, so we know perfectly all the mechanics and so on. And on one moment, the authors doesn't know what is the newbie into the game, what his feelings, the experience, how is he going, when he's starting to play to the game. And that's that we have to change to ease the game experience at the end.
Once again, though, of course, the game remains perfectly playable.
Yeah, of course.
It's just like something we want to do.
Absolutely.
To put it bluntly. So here we are, once again. Welcome to the Museum Kickstarter Campaign, Museum 2nd Edition. We're going to run you through a lot of things that have changed, the new stuff for the campaign. Anything we don't get through, of course, we will be in the comment section on the Kickstarter page when it begins. So feel free to let us know any of the questions you might have there or on the live stream chat, and we will try and get around to your questions as we go. Okay?
Good.
So let's start with one of the main attractions of the campaign, which is the Hisotrians expansion. Yeah. So this is expansion number 5, if we count the 5th player expansion.
Yes.
So it's the 5th gameplay expansion, shall we say, excluding Kickstarter exclusive expansions. There's a lot of them.
With a new mechanics.
Exactly. Of course. Once again, it's another gameplay module. Yep. You attach it to the rest of the game, and it gives you some new gaming sensations, some new mechanics, some new way to gain victory points, prestige points, and in this case, research tokens.
Absolutely. The idea of the Historians is to make some research on the objects.
Indeed.
And in terms of research, we include publications. I mean, in real life, publications, works, guys who are going to the field, make the measures, and so on.
And most museums, even nowadays, will have this kind of department that keeps that renovates objects, even that does the research, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
the theses, the work for the students, and so on. So, meaning that the idea was to bring into this expansion all these fields of research. So the idea is mainly the new mechanics in the tempo. We are really focused on the tempo and how can I increase the value of my collection by the end of the game. And that we have tried to have done. So the main idea is I'm going to, when I'm developing my museum and I'm, exposing cards into my museum.
Yeah, so during your term when you're furbishing your museum.
Absolutely. The idea is now I can put some object into research.
Yes.
So the idea is I can insert any object in this track going from this side to the other one.
So these are the new research boards.
This is the research board.
They have 5 slots each.
Every player has one. And in my game session, I can put a card into the research board, and there is a cost for this.
Yes.
So the cost is 5 minus the value of the object. Meaning that if I'm making research on a masterpiece, I will get more, it will be easier to have some new information on the civilization or on the domain than, a small object, a less object at the end. So when meaning that, I can pay with my prestige point or with the value of the card, which is in this case 0, because I included
5 minus 5 is 0, obviously.
But if I want to have a new step in my my development, now it would be 6 minus the value of the object.
So that would be 1, obviously.
And I can pay with 1 card of value 1 from my personal reserve, my hand, or with prestige point.
I should know one thing: when you're first putting an object into the research, it must come, as you show, from your hand. Absolutely. It cannot come from your common pool.
Absolutely.
It has to come directly from your hand.
Yes, indeed. Then I can do this several times in my own turn. In one turn, I can do the research on one object. I can do the whole board if I want to, and if I can pay. But I must pay separately each step. Right. Meaning that if I want to go there, it will cost 7 minus the value of the object, which is 2. And if I reach this section, I can take now a new token of the civilization.
One of these research tokens.
Absolutely. Okay. So you have 6 for a civilization and 3 per domain.
So in this case, this is a Polynesian card, so I would take 1 Polynesian token.
And put it in my reserve.
There it is.
Exactly. Then I have the option to get back the object back to my museum. So I have to pay the value of the card, in my board.
So you have to buy the object back as per usual to put it into your museum.
Exactly. And at any time I can get back the object back to my museum. It can't go anywhere else except in the museum. Then, because it's an object on which I'm working, so I'm going to expose it at one moment. But I can also pay the value, the object minus the 8 minus the value of the object, in this case 3. And in this time, I will get a research on the domain.
So this is an agriculture card, so I would take 1 agriculture token and put it into my reserve.
Exactly. And I can do the last one, which will be 9 minus the value of the object. It will be a new Polynesian,
Okay, so I take a second Polynesian token.
Exactly. And from that moment, it's time to get back the card in my museum. But I can do it in the same round or later, during the game, depending, on your strategy.
However, not taking cards out does have an effect in the sense that you can have multiple cards in the track at the same time.
Yeah, you could, but not on the same space. If I have to include a new one, it will be a free space to include the card in the research board. So this is the idea, and the crux is to make a tempo on which I'm planning to develop on this civilization, and then I'm more interested in agriculture, so I don't need maybe to go to the domain. And I can get back, the cards back to my museum. And, it's really based on the tempo of the game.
And plus, it does come out as expensive. Obviously, the tokens can be very much worth it at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
But even with a very expensive object, it's still going to cost you 1, 3, 6, and then 10 points. So it's still
expensive.
An expensive object.
Expensive if I pay with prestige point, of course, because it's really a death. You lose victory point by the end of the game. But I need to have each value in my hand. Of course, I can pay 2 with a 3 value card.
Yes, you can overpay, of course.
But which means that we need 1, 2, 3, 4 cards of the value at the minimum the value. So which means that I will get 4 cards in my common pool by the end of the round, which give opportunities to the other players.
Indeed.
Because they can, pick them up.
Yes, exactly.
So this is mainly. So by the end, we can play during the game like this, and by the end of the game, you will increase the value of the collection for the civilization token that you have.
Just like with an expert.
Absolutely. It works exactly as an expert, except that these tokens doesn't increase, they are not taken into account to your objective cards.
Yes, just like the experts.
Exactly.
For the V2, we'll get to that in a bit.
Absolutely. So, you increase the value by the number of tokens. So there is a new grid of value for the domains because you can go through 9 value token. So you have the expert plus 3.
Yep.
And that's it. And this is the expansions.
Well, there is also a finite number of tokens.
Of course, you have 6 tokens per civilization, and only 6, meaning that by the end of you could spend more and more time. You can't increase the value of the collection. And the moment you have done all the research on a civilization,
there's enough material out there.
And exactly the same thing on the domain, except you only have 3 tokens for each domain.
Yep. Okay then. Well, that is basically the Historians. Once again, it's it's like with the rest of the museum, the base rules are very simple. They are very lucid, they're easy to comprehend, but the choice of how you use them, when you use them, is what makes it or breaks it, shall we say. So a great, as Olivier was saying, a great expansion for to really tempo the game a little bit, to invest, as it were, then draw back on that investment during the game and at the end of the game with one's tokens.
Absolutely.
There we go. So this expansion is a Kickstarter exclusive. It will be available on its own, just like all the other expansions, in its own box, etc. If you buy the deluxe box as well, the deluxe storage system, which is a nice big white box with all the plastic trays inside, it comes for free in that as well.
Of course, it comes with new events.
Yes,
with
like
new flavor cards and new experts.
Like every other expansion.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that's everything about the expansion. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let us know. Just like the other expansions, this can be played with all the other expansions. It can be combined for different effects.
Of course,
special cards that can be purchased in other expansions can be run through there as well. So black market cards, Cthulhu cards, as long as they have a civilization or a domain, they can go through. In the case of black market, if they don't have a domain, well, you won't get a domain token out of them.
Absolutely.
So up to you whether you use it for that or not. It's maybe not super efficient, but maybe that's all you have. It's up to you.
Yeah, because at the end, you need a high value. You could include a card with a low value inside, but it would be so expensive by the end of the game. So you will lose. So most of the time, you need a 4 or 5.
Yeah. 5. I think a 4 is the minimum value. You put a 3 in there, it's
or you stop there. It will cost 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of points just to have one token more. So it's complicated. So most of the time you will include a 5 value inside, a masterpiece or 4 value, to be sure that, at the end it's profitable for the value of the collection.
Exactly. But if you don't have access to the right card, or you already have it in your museum, you didn't put into the researchers early enough, the historians early enough, as it were, sometimes you've got to take what you can get. If you need that civilization token to do something, well, to gain more points, then you've got to do it. But obviously...
Yeah, because sometimes, as we say, shit happens, and you don't have the value, you don't have the value of the card, and I said, okay, I have to go now, because you can't do this after 35 points on the track, you don't do this, because at the end of the game, the cards which are there are not part of your museum.
Of course.
And that's maybe the problem, because you could lose the value of the card, etc. So you really need to get the good tempo inside this.
That's true. So that is everything about Historians. I will mention, of course, this is a prototype. Obviously, everything else you see is part of the actual game, the actual production copy. This is a prototype. This has been printed on paper, just so we can show it to you. But very much like the new 2mm boards that will be included in this campaign, this will be in 2mm board as well, whether you're buying it in the deluxe box or separately as an expansion.
Travis asks us, I'm assuming relics couldn't be put in the system.
The relics, the extraordinary objects, I think he means.
No, we can't.
No, extraordinary objects, because they can't be purchased.
No.
From your into your hand.
No.
They are put straight into your museum. So
you can't. The cards which are on the research board come from your end.
Yes, they have to come from
only
your hand.
the end.
Exactly. So that means that, in fact, sorry, I'll take what I said back. That means it can't even come from the black markets, because those are taken from the black market board and put straight into your museum. But to be perfectly honest, it was a terrible idea anyway, because black market cards only have civilization or domains,
absolutely.
so you
can lose the value of this. So there is no point in doing this.
No, exactly. Moving on. That is the new expansion for the game. But of course, as we said, we've come back and we're making a couple of little tweaks to the game itself. And I say a couple of little tweaks. There's a fair few of them. They don't fundamentally break or redesign the game. As we said at the beginning, they just kind of make it more fluid. They bring it more into line with the kind of, shall I say, sensations we wanted the game to give players. And of course, we have a whole list of them, so I think we'll go through them one by one.
Of course, yeah. Sure.
I think the first thing we should talk about is the game turn and how we purchase objects.
Yes. The idea, combining with the feedback from our distributors and the players, the idea was to separate. It could be confusing in the first edition to mix the fact that you can buy expert at the same time you can expose cards in your refurbish card in your museum and so on.
You could discard a value of 8 cards and then buy
5 and 3.
Exactly.
So, and first I would like to go to the expert.
Yeah, sure, because the experts are a big part.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So on the expert side, we have completely changed the expert cost. Now all the experts cost 2, but it's not a 2. It costs 2 prestige points.
Exactly.
So you can't only buy, or recruit experts with prestige points.
Exactly.
And all of them cost 2. Because we have changed also the grid of the value of the collection for domain and for civilization. So this is a big change, and we have changed this due to the fact that our distributor wanted, and the feedback of the players, wanted to have a more emphasis on the civilization collection, and a little bit less on the domain.
I mean, it was more along the lines that, this is exactly true what you're saying, but it was also along the lines of that we felt that domain collections gained too many points too fast. So even if you only got 2, or even if you only got 3 domain cards, you still got 5 points, which is still great. Whereas if you had 3 civilization cards, you got 1 point, which was rubbish. Yeah. And basically, civilizations had to get really big for them to not even to be worth a lot of points, but for them to not procure a sensation of frustration. That's the problem.
It was the frustration. It was exactly the point, because on the math side, it was, it was fair enough between 2 collections. But the sensation was, it was more interesting to make, domain collection than civilization collection.
And that's just due to the way the game plays.
Exactly.
The way cards come out, the way cards are used for both civilization and domain collection. If an Egyptian comes out and you're playing Egyptian, you're collecting Egyptian, you go, I really need that card, and somebody takes it because they want it. You're like, and that is a big blow for civilization collections, because until you got to 7 or 8 cards, it just wasn't worth it as much as domains. And that was very frustrating. So you could invest massively in a continent, use all your favorite cards, take all your draws from there, everything, revealing a load of public opinion tokens in the hope you would get the cards you wanted. And if you did, it was great. Exactly. If you didn't, it was very, very
and we have changed, the curse.
Yes, exactly.
The line of the value of the collections.
Exactly.
So we have modified a little bit less for the domain, and a little bit more on the civilization, and a little bit more quite fast for the civilization.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you'd rather do a civilization collection with 5, 4, 6 cards, which is
if you get to 5, 4, 6 cards,
it's really good.
Yeah, and you don't go any further. Well, it's good. It's satisfying.
It's satisfying. Exactly.
It won't break the game. If you want civilization collections to really break the score chart, you still need to get 10 or more. With certain expansions is more than possible. And if you really manage to dig deep and get them, it's great. But I mean, in my experience, the most cards I've ever seen from a civilization was 11. I think you had a run of 12 once.
With the expert.
Exactly, with the expert. So, because the way this is a set collection game with card decks, these cards have to be drawn, they have to appear. So, which we of course have no problem with, that's the point of the game. But the way the civilizations were scored, if you didn't get those cards out at the end of the game, if you had 4, 5, or 6, it just wasn't worth it. And you'd be like, if I'd have managed to get 6 domain cards, I'd have got 3 times as many points. It just wasn't worth it. So once again, civilization curve has gone up. The middle of the civilization curve has gone up, and the middle of the domain curve has come down.
Absolutely.
They are still more or less worth the same amount of points at the end.
On that, due to this fact, the value, the different values of the expert didn't mean anything, because it's in between. So we have decided to make the all value with 2.
Yeah.
So all the experts are the other 2 values, but paid with prestige points.
Yes, that's the big change. We wanted to make them more approachable, more affordable, but to stop people from really abusing them in ways that we might not have thought of, because you never know. It was easier to have it paid with prestige points, which counteracts, we think, rather nicely the cheaper cost, because whereas, when you pay for a card, you have a double use of a card, prestige points have a double effect in the sense that they are sometimes the last point you need to get a big card or a big set of cards into a museum, and they are crucial at hoovering up cards from your common pool in order to avoid public opinion point loss. So you pay less, but you pay with something a bit more valuable.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
And it makes sense in the fact that it's really valuable when you recruit an expert and you have, you come from the 5 to the 5th card in the Mesopotamian collection, for example, for this one. And it's really valuable because if you pay 2, most of the time you get back 4 or 5 points more, on the value of the collection. So, but at the end, it's a loss of point because when you lose prestige point, it's a loss of point and not a value card.
It's a super hard thing to measure because perhaps those 2 prestige points by the end of the game would have allowed you to take like 2 cards out of your museum, out of your common pool into your museum, which would have gained you 2 points and maybe stopped you from losing 6. Exactly. So it's really hard to measure this kind of thing. We just feel that with this change, the balance is there.
And to be honest, with the amount of plays that we have done now, with these new rules, bring players to recruit more experts than in the past.
Yeah.
Meaning that also we have changed some experts. We've increased the power.
The powers of experts that give you abilities or passive things are now brought back into line. We'll talk more about those later on. Obviously, the experts and domain cards, they've all stayed the same, but the ones that there are a couple of cards where very situationally they were awesome. The rest of the time, you could gloss over them, and that isn't really what we wanted. So we've gone back and changed a couple.
Exactly.
So there's that. In fact, I'm going to go to my list so I don't miss anything here. So
during the turn now, you can't buy expert with cards with the value of your cards. So you can only now mix the values of cards just to expose cards.
Exactly. So if you put 8 into your common pool value of cards, you can put 8 value of cards or less into a museum.
Absolutely. Done.
Exactly.
Even with the expansions, only with the warfare.
Well, yes.
So with the warfare expansion, you can still, because you're exposing cards into the pavilion.
Yes.
So it works exactly the same thing. You can put a 2 there and a 3 there in the pavilion.
Exactly. Because you are buying that object, you're just not displaying it in your museum. You're putting it,
and it's yours. Yes. So it's your card. It's your object. It belongs to you.
Exactly.
So, but on the others, expansion doesn't work anymore like this.
Exactly.
So with these new rules, we had to change a little bit the other expansions and the reason of the other expansions.
Nothing major, but just to bring it more in line with this simpler way of describing the player turn.
Absolutely.
Then we're talking about the player turn, the inventory action.
I'll just check if I have some question. Let you read.
So there's a couple of things here about the Kickstarter campaign. We'll get to these afterwards, I think.
Okay.
There's nothing much there for the moment. However, obviously, guys, if we don't get to your questions, don't worry. We will get to them during the Kickstarter, or feel free to leave them in the comment section. We'll get to you. No worries. And of course, I saw there was a couple of questions about pledge levels and add-ons and such. The preview is up. There's a link on our Facebook page. Feel free to go check it out. You'll have all the answers to your questions there. Sorry. So moving on, the inventory action.
Yes.
So that we have changed a bit because you and me know, obviously, we have played the game a lot. That the inventory action used strategically is very important.
Absolutely.
It's not something you just want to throw away because you have like 1 or 2 cards in your inventory, but used at the right time, it can be very powerful. That being said, you can't just think of a game, you can't just reason a game around people that have played it as much as we have, which is more than probably anybody else in the world. So the feedback we got was there was a certain frustration with the inventory action.
Absolutely. It was like you lose your action, your turn, dealing back your cards into your hands.
Exactly.
And it was really considered as, it was really frustrating.
Yeah. There was a loss of tempo even. You're turn 1, playing cards, picking up cards, putting down cards. Turn 2, same thing. Turn 3, I pick up some cards, I'm done. It's a bit of a...
It's frustrating, but at the end it was not a part of the strategy. It was really different. So we try to increase the emphasis of the inventory. So the idea is when you are doing your inventory, you still take your card back from your common pool to your
up to a maximum of 7, as per usual.
As usual. But you draw a favor card, and then you can get 2 prestige points.
Which can be used during this turn.
Absolutely.
Because you can still play your favour card during the turn,
now during your inventory phase, you can recruit expert.
Yes.
But not only, in the basic game, you can recruit expert, but with the other expansion, for example, for the archaeologist, you can still deploy your archaeologist during your inventory turn.
Exactly.
So it's another way to it's another month of tempo.
Yeah.
So it's less frustrating because you can still make some moves, but you are not, increasing the value of your collection, and you are redoing, you are taking back some cards to give you a good hand for the next turn.
We kind of emphasize the resource gain of the inventory. So you deep breath, and then you're back in the game. And even then, you gain favor cards. You gain 2 points, which is
indeed.
Coincidentally exactly the same amount as an expert card costs. So you could, even the turn when you're doing inventory, you can still play your favor card. You can buy an expert. These are all effects that
it was
can
really frustrating at a moment when you had decided to make an inventory and you get your expert that you need to your collection and say, I can't do. So now you can still buy it if you want to.
There we go. So with that, we hope to, even though we still believe that the inventory is, technically is even more interesting of an action now, that removes the frustration.
Absolutely.
Having these extra resources and being able to do more during your turn, hopefully that will remove that frustration. Moving on to the experts themselves. So as we said, the big change, they're now only paid with the prestige points. They all cost 2. They can be they can be purchased during an inventory action. However, obviously a lot of the cards have remained the same when we're referring to civilization and domain cards. However, we have also brought we have brought all of the cards that gave you abilities or passive abilities back into line, because some of them just were not interesting, especially for their own cost.
Yes,
or they were too interesting.
In the past, for a value of 3 or 4, was not really interesting at the end. Sometimes, yes, with the expansions. We did recruit in the past with Eric because we knew the value at the end it could be profitable for a game session. But again, it's always a question of game experience.
Yes.
And now we have changed Patricia Turner.
For example.
She's a value of 2, of course. You still have a maximum of 10 cards.
Her own power was, and it is still her power, is she brings your hand size maximum up to 10, which with inventory is very good.
But you take back immediately a card from your one card and not a value, which is a bit different of kind of inventory. You take one card from a common pool back to your hand.
Which is a kind of mini free inventory.
And it can be a small combo, You don't have the favor cards in inventory. We don't want to make it a full inventory. So you can recruit it to increase the value, of course, but also to get better cards that you will need to make, to carry on your turn.
Exactly.
We also have changed Richard Biota. Richard give you a maximum ends of 5 favor cards, which is still But when you recruit it, you immediately take 2 favor cards into your ends, which give you more solutions, more opportunity to develop your turn.
Exactly. Which is much more interesting than how they used to be. Now, some of you might be going, especially maybe with Patricia, wow, that's, a free inventory for 2. That's amazing. Because, even just drawing a card for 2 seems very powerful. But once again, we go back to the fact that this is prestige points.
Yes.
You have to spend those points.
You lose a victory point by the end.
And if you would have lost you lose victory points because you either have them for victory points or you spend them on objects, which are victory points. You don't know what the loss of those points is going to do to you later on in the game. Have 2 prestige points, can buy back 2 cards from your common pool, which can represent up to 10 points if things have gone really wrong with public opinion. So it's very hard to measure the long-term effects of this kind of spending. So even at 2 points, it's still not an investment to be taken lightly, but it is definitely interesting enough so that even if you regret it later, the power of that expert is sufficient to go, okay, well, it's still worth it.
Absolutely. The last one and not the least, it's Ulf von der Noot, the banker.
The infamous.
But in our experience, to be honest, in the first edition, it was not relevant at the end. My experience that when you draw it, you win.
Yeah.
But again, with the game experience, we have changed it completely. So now we have changed this. It could be quite profitable at the end if you try to get the card from the opponent's common pool.
Yeah.
And when you do this, instead of paying from your prestige point to your opponent, the prestige point that you have to get for the cards that you take back come from the bank.
Yep, that's it. So basically, as far as you're concerned, everybody's common pool is your common pool.
Exactly.
They get some money, but that's not your problem.
It's not your problem.
Everybody's common pool is now yours,
so
which is very useful.
Very useful.
But the other players, they still get their little prestige points. So that rule is still respected. It just benefits you And the fact that you might be going to get more cards from people benefits other people as well. So it's it changes a little bit the
again,
game.
If you buy this guy too, you need at least to do at least 2 or 3 times you get back the cards from the other common pool.
You need to do at least 3, otherwise you might not. But you might as well not bothered.
Exactly.
Because those 2 prestige points are much more valuable.
Oh yes, of course.
Than just spending them for if you're buying this kind of thing, you want at least a return of 4. You want double your investment back, because once again, prestige points that is one thing that's come back, and we knew it was the case. We wanted them to be, but prestige points are incredibly valuable in the game. Sorry,
and it is.
So, favour cards next. So, not huge amounts to talk about here. We rebalanced a couple of things.
Yes, the press conference, we have modified it. Now, for the press conference, you remove 1 to 5 bad opinion token.
Yep, public opinion tokens.
And in the same time, you win 1 to 5 prestige point, depending.
1 for each token you remove.
Exactly.
Basically.
So you ease the end of the game for the other players. But on the other hand, you can win up to 5 prestige point, which is roughly what you have with the bank.
The bank loan.
The bank loan.
Yes. Yeah. Which is 4 points. So if you use it right at the end of the game, it gets you 5. Clearing off a continent can be very beneficial to you vis-a-vis your common pool, but that is also the case for everybody else, because they ignore it. If there's no more tokens, they ignore it too. And it comes out at more or less, unless there is a maximum amount of tokens, it comes out at the same or less as a back loan in actual value.
The main thing that we have changed on the favour card is now, instead of using your favour card for the power, so for the private collectioner or whatever, you can still use your favour card and discard it, and you can take a card, an object card, which you can draw from any continent and get back into your hand. So it was a sensation, again, the experience, the game sensation for the other players, that sometimes you get a favour card, said, oh no, I don't want this one, it's useless for any reason. And now, at the end, I get rid of, I take back a card.
Exactly.
At least if it's a 5 value, it's really profitable. If there is still 1 less, I mean, you can't draw from the
normal. It's like drawing at the beginning of the turn.
Absolutely.
Normal rules apply. You take one of the cards that are available, and you discard your favourite card. That counts towards your limit of 1 per turn as well. So you can't play an actual favourite.
Exactly. You don't play your favour card for the effect, but just to take an object card.
Exactly.
So again, it brings into the loop the fact that you can have the card that you wanted to. Imagine in 1 turn you have 2 cards, and you are still the one that you want to get back. Okay, I don't take the private collection, and I take this one. And it's really, it's a good sensation for the players.
Exactly. You need some favour cards. Plus, I get the impression. I know we draw more favour cards with this system between the different experts and the inventory rule and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So sometimes you're drawing lots. You might have a lot of hand and go, yeah, but none of these interest me. Like, I could get 4 prestige points, but what I really want is that card that's worth 1.
Yes.
Boom, done.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and again, it goes into the good direction for something enjoyable for the new players, which discover the games.
And even for the experts, there is much more strategic use to that than before.
At the end, even if you don't use the power of the cards, as you have maybe 6 cards up to 50, you can have 6 more cards, which. After 5,
not uninteresting, because this is a game where we collect objects, and these objects are also resources.
Exactly.
So the more we have, the better it is. Absolutely. That goes without saying. So anyway, that's the main change for the favour cards. The fact that you can discard one of them to pick up any object card from the board, or play them for their ability, some of which have been rebalanced. Then I think that's everything to do with the actual game turn. Now we're going to move on to the end of the game, so a couple of changes that we've made. First of all, finishing the game. So to start, I'm just going to reiterate something we said, because we've been asked questions about this. I'm talking, of course, about the fact that the first player to pass the 50-point mark sets off the end of the game. Everybody else plays, but not hit them, and then we score.
Yeah.
Okay? So that is not the way a lot of board games do it. A lot of them will just either immediately end, or we finish the round, or everybody gets 1 more round, that kind of thing. Whereas we're almost half and half here. Why we did this, and what we've always said, and because this is the truth, is that we wanted the end of the game, that the actual conscious decision to end the game was a strategic choice.
Absolutely. It's the DNA of the game is based on your choice. You decide to end the game.
Yeah. Museum
and this is your decision.
Yeah.
This is the player's decision.
Exactly.
Not only, you design and you compare what you have in your museum compared to the others, the opponent's museum. Say, now I know that I'm a good position because what I see there and what I see in yours, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's a right moment to finish the game.
And Museum, we never wanted Museum to be a race, so we didn't want it to be a sprint for the finish line. And we did not want it to be like I've got 7 turns, so I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
We wanted it really to be, your collections are getting big, mine are small, but if I rush 50 points now, which I can do because X, Y, Z, then I think I can beat you.
I can beat you.
And that's always the choice we wanted to have. Now, we got a lot of feedback. Well, we got feedback about this from players, from distributors saying, which ranged from this isn't how other games do it, blah, 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 or even, it doesn't seem right. So we did due diligence. We went back, we tried some other systems. We tried the traditional Olivier finishes the game, then we finished the round, but that ended up being very much
frustrating.
Frustrating in just the last player held so much power.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm not saying the other games are doing it wrong. I'm saying that, this is the case for Museum.
It depends on the DNA of the game, and in our philosophy, as it's not a race, and you must decide when you open your museum to the public because this is what you are doing in this game. It was much more relevant for us to decide when you want to finish the game, and now we have decided to include a little bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So. Like I said, we were trying the other systems. The one I was just describing, the last player had far too much power. Most of the late game of those test sessions was basically the entire table looking at the final player going, is he going to do it or not? Is he going to do it or not? And they just dictated when the game ended. Whereas having somebody finish the game and then do another turn was too beneficial to the player that finished the game. Like, the fact they could go, well, I'm just going to blow everything in the next term, inventory, have fun, guys, was just too good.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is we remain convinced that for Museum, this is the right way to do it. That is our opinion. Obviously, you may feel differently, but we honestly have tried, and we still feel this is the best way to do it. But as Olivier was saying, we don't want to ignore feedback. We understand that some might find this a little bit frustrating. To lose a turn, as it were, even though, as we always say, Museum is not played in the final turn of the game. It is played over all of the turns. However, now the first player to cross 50 points will get a small bonus.
Yes, a five value point. Yeah. So if you are the first one to cross the 50, it'll give you 5,
exactly.
Which is...
It's an object file worth 5.
I mean,
it's a small collection of cards.
Absolutely.
It's a bank loan. Well, it's a bit more powerful than a bank loan.
It can make the difference.
It can make a big difference. In our gameplay tests, games have been won and lost on that. So obviously, if somebody's really run away with the game, but you get over 50 first, it's not going to save you. But if it's neck and neck, and like the situation I was discussing earlier, where I think I can beat you if I get over the line first, it can make the difference.
And again, the last turn of the game is not what you make you win.
No.
But what we make you win is what you have done in your museum for the whole game session.
That's the one.
So the final turn can make you, a little bit more go into your strategy, but the 5 value give you the credit at the end that you have decided to end the game, and you have this little carrot at the end of the game.
That's the one. So finally, moving on, is the patron cards. So the patron cards are possibly the biggest change, I think, that we've done.
Yes, because...
Well, the most comprehensive, shall we say.
In the past, we always have thought that the objective cards would lead the player to do a thing, your strategy.
Yeah, Museum is a simple game at heart. The actions are very easy to understand.
Exactly.
What gives it its depth and complexity, as it were, is all the options you have available, all the cards, the patrons, the favour cards, what's happening with the events, all that sort of thing. And the patron cards, which we didn't have originally at one point in the game, we brought them in because we wanted, especially for new players, to go, okay, this is a lot of stuff happening here, but here's some stuff you can do to get some points.
Absolutely. In the past, when we developed the first edition, we were playing without. At the beginning of the museum, we didn't get objective cards. But for the new players, it was, what do I do with all the things there, what can I do? So we have decided to include some clues, and it was the objective cards.
Exactly.
But it seems, and again, it's always complicated when you are designing a game to be sure that it fits to the good, not the good players, but the experienced players and the new one. And it appears that for the new players, it was really frustrating with the objective card that you can't do it because
they were big. They're big cards.
They
ask you to do all. It takes an entire game generally to do an objective card.
Absolutely.
Which has kind of had the effect of like blinkers, like on horses. Like these cards required so many actions and gave you so many points, especially for new players. They would end up going, right, this is my life now. I must do this card, and if I do not, it's frustrating.
Of course.
Because objective cards, in a way, will punish you just by their very nature if you invest too much in them and you do not manage to do it.
Even if we know as designers that you can't win. I mean, you don't necessarily win if you don't do your objective cards.
You can win without scoring the minimum on your objective card.
Exactly. You can score the minimum and take the point somewhere else. But in the fun, for the new players, it was a frustration.
Yeah.
So we have changed this and modified that. Now you get less victory point by the end of the game with your objective cards. And it's, it represents less in the final, amount of points that you have at the end of the game.
But before they used to represent upwards of 20% of your final score sometimes.
Between 30 to 25, depending.
They could, depending on the level of play.
Absolutely.
So they could be a lot of points. And
exactly.
that wasn't really our intention, shall we say. And it just contributed to them being just so important, so dominant, When the idea of Museum, once again, set collection game with cards that are in decks, you're not always going to get what you want. So the idea behind Museum is there is an opportunistic side to Museum. You have to be supple. You have to be able to adapt to what appears.
Absolutely.
To take initiatives, to take risks, to go after one thing, maybe at the detriment of another. And with these massive points values in front of you, it's like, no, I get Roman cards. I don't get any other card. I just get Romans.
And if the Roman is not there, you're frustrated.
Exactly.
And we have changed it to 3 for each objective card. So we have now a lot of objective cards, and you have only 3. How would you say this?
Criteria.
Yeah. By the end of the game, if you have 4 Roman cards, you will get 5 points. If you get 2 experts, you will get 5 points. So you have always 3 criteria in your objective cards. And at the end, the objective card is only 15 points, which is less than in the past.
Yeah, it's between 8 and 12% of an average final score now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's 5-10 maximum, And at the end, it gives you what you could do. But if you don't do it, you only lose 5 points, which is maybe the 5 points you could get if you are at the end of the game and you cross it.
And it's not even something you have to do right away. Like I said, the old cards were so heavy, they required an entire game. Especially the mono civilization cards, like you had to do them over a game. And if a civilization of your colour appeared, you dropped everything, you took that card. No questions asked. These smaller objectives, not only do they give you more air, they take the blinkers off, they give you more air to breathe, they open you up to more possibilities just because you're not so concentrated on one overpowering element. They can be done at any point during the game. Like late game, you could do all 3 criteria in one turn, potentially.
Absolutely.
Because your engine's there, you've got your cards, you've got everything.
Grand gallery criteria, some experts, some prestige point by the end of the game. You need to keep prestige point by the end of the game. So you have really small criteria, which can be easy to be done, but not all the time, because all the time you have choice to make.
Exactly.
And if the Romans doesn't go out, you need 5 Romans, 4 Roman cards, or 8 value of Roman cards.
Yes, and that's a new addition as well. Values of cards. And it doesn't appear, it's not a problem. No. It's only 5 points. You can get, the Phoenician, the Celts, which are there. Or even then, if you're halfway through the game, well, there's no Romans, so I've already got a small navigation collection. This is good.
Exactly.
And that's more what we wanted to see in Museum.
It gives you a direction.
Not any Romans again. You know, and because that is inherent to the nature of card games. That's just the mechanic. There's nothing you can do about it.
We have 180 cards, which is 50 cards per roughly 50 cards with the public opinion cards. So you know that you have 30% to get your cards at the beginning, but more you go deeper, and the less cards you can get, you know. So it was the objective cards in the past were determining your direction.
Yeah.
Now it gives you some options.
Yeah, it gives you options. It gives you some points, not a determinate amount of points.
No.
And it just lets you play Museum and not your objective card.
Absolutely.
So especially, of course, this is more of a change for new players than it is for, and obviously us who have demoed so many games of this at events, like we immediately see the benefit of it, shall we say. This is more of a change for new players. Expert players won't notice that much of a change, but they still will.
Yes, because at the end, and at the end is how you can, you know, increase the optimization of your collections. If I do a Romans, I can choose to make a war collection. It will go with a Roman collection, you know, because we have war into the Romans. So this is how you can, you know, make some optimization into your collection. And this is the fact for the good players. And you have really the learning curves between the newbie and the expert players, and you can still progress into this.
You see progress. You're not determining that this game should only be played by expert players, but the people that are experts in it, otherwise, well, people are never going to start playing it. It's for us. It's one of the biggest changes, and I think it's the one that we will see the most effect immediately.
Of course, and without any frustration for the new players, which was, you know, the request from our distributor in different countries. Because again, a museum, it's a family game. Yeah. Even if you can play as an expert, it's a family game.
Yeah.
You need to get the clue at the beginning of the game, at the game session.
Oh no, absolutely. Right. Well, I think we've gone through all the changes for the V2.
Of course. So
I have none left on my list, so that's done.
So the second edition will make some change on all the other expansions.
Of course, any cards that need to be corrected will be included in the second edition upgrade pack.
Yeah.
So obviously, we're still testing a few final little things. So the number of cards we change or not will vary. We hope to have a full list ready before the end of the year. Obviously, feel free to ask us any questions about anything. If you have a specific card in mind, like, what about this card? Ask us. We will tell you what we have done.
Absolutely.
There we go. I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. Obviously, we have another 3 weeks ahead of us to come back and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's any questions just at the end of the chat very quickly that we can go through.
I don't think.
But otherwise, I think we're already over 8 o'clock. I think our colleagues would have already pressed the go button on the campaign. So eager to go
yes,
and
indeed.
see how
Someone, Valerie, has said
okay.
I already clicked. You know,
yep. Okay.
So.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for supporting us.
And again, we have tried again to make something more comprehensive for every player.
Yeah.
I really love this second edition, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be honest, the second edition comes also because we are working on a new opus of Museum, which will come next year.
Yep.
And with this new opus, with new mechanics, it makes us think about, it was interesting what we have done.
Plus our improvement as game designers,
of course,
especially in your case, especially.
In my case, it was our first game. It was exactly the game for Eric and I. Yeah, it was reflecting what we are.
Yep.
Exactly what we think about the game. Now, we just admit that we have it reflects us.
Yeah.
Now it's much more for every player.
Yes.
And I know.
Which is fine. You know, you guys, obviously, you design it for yourself. You guys represent a certain type of player.
Of course.
The game represents a certain type of genre, shall we say. But at the end of the day, once again, as I said right at the beginning, we play hundreds of games. As soon as the game is released, thousands of games get played.
Of course.
And it's very hard for us as game designers, in all honesty, being able to take a step back and look at things objectively. I envy designers that can do that, or project managers or whatever. Like people that can put so much time and effort into something like this and then still step back and go, yes, but... That's a skill.
Yeah,
that's a real skill. And it's something we've developed over time. This is our...
And it is complicated because during the game session, the event, that all the fairs that we have done in Essen, in Gen Con and whatever, and all the players that have tested the game, it's always complicated to say, I have to take this into account, or I don't have to take this into account. And with the thousands of copies that we have done with Museum, there are the thousands of game sessions have been done, and now we can have, a kind of, okay, I understand the feeling about this when you are making, your table and say, okay, the objective cards are difficult to do, so could we have for the new players something not so important to and don't take into account this kind of things. So it asks to reconsider some adjustments into the games and make Museum, easier for new players without modifying the DNA of the game.
And once again, correcting the sentiment of the game, because that's also why we play games, is to have a good time, and nobody wants to be frustrated at the end of the game. So there we go. One thing I will say is when you handed me the iPad earlier, I did see one question asking if we were going to have acrylic token upgrades for this campaign. Now, for the moment, we are doing, obviously, the new deluxe box, the new storage system. We have card sleeves this time around, which was much requested in our previous campaigns. I have not... I don't have any plans for acrylic tokens yet. That doesn't mean we won't do it. To be honest, this is going to be... how can I put it? This is a campaign without stretch goals, for one. We went through everything we had, really, in reserve, apart from the Hisotrians during the first campaign. And one social stretch goal, which you guys have probably seen now for the bad press, which we didn't have at the time, to be perfectly honest. But what I'm always expecting, I suppose, from Kickstarter campaigns is feedback of people going, yeah, I'd really like this. And to be honest, if you guys want acrylic tokens, tell us, and then we'll work it. Maybe we do transparent acrylic tokens. Maybe we do monocolor acrylic tokens. Maybe we do like multi-part assemblable color tokens with like one color for the ribbon, one color for the medallion. Obviously, I'm talking about or metal. To be honest, I just want to know what you guys want and what's the best thing we could really make. It's not something we decided was necessary for the game. For the deluxe version especially, we wanted to keep it at a certain price point, so that's not something we put into the box. But, we can always add it as an add-on. We can always do something cool. Let us know what you guys want. There we go. That's what I have to say about that. I think we've covered everything. Yeah, and like I said, we have 3 weeks to talk about this. So
for the beginning.
Exactly. It's a good start. It's a good start.
Yeah.
So once again, those of you who are joining us on the campaign for the first time, thank you very much for supporting us. Everybody who's back for the second time, for the upgrades, for the new box, everything, thank you so much for coming back and supporting us again. It really means a lot to us. Museum is our baby.
Yes. It's growing,
Exactly. It's getting a big baby now.
Years old,
the crib we're selling for it is big now. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. That's the best way I can say it. So I think we're all eager to get away and start. Well, I have to go and check on the campaign now, start replying to comments, all that kind of thing. And I think Georgina actually has an interview tonight with another Facebook channel, so she might not be on the comments right now, so I definitely need to go and do that. And you need to get some sleep because you had an early flight this morning.
Absolutely.
So, guys, thank you very much for joining us. If we did not get to your questions, once again, drop them into the comment section of the Kickstarter page. We will get to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And we're here for the next 3 weeks, so let us know whatever you're thinking. Cheers, guys. Have a nice evening. Thank you.